All right. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. I am Kristina Campos. I am founder of The Impactful Parent, and I'm happy that you're here today. We're under the Amigos Club, and we're going to get started here in just a second. I am waiting just for my co mods. We're going to be talking about elevating your parenting game. This is going to be an awesome motivational hour where we're going to provide you tips of things that have worked for us in the past that we feel are awesome that people could also implement. We also welcome you to also come on stage and share your parenting tips that have worked for you so that we could all learn from each other and be better parents. I'm excited to get this room going today. We're going to be talking for about an hour and we're going to get going here in just a minute. Just waiting for Rodrigo and Dali. I think both of them should be coming today. Rodrigo is my particular usual partner in crime. He's a mediator. He's going to be coming in shortly. And Dali is a parenting coach that works with bullying and specifically with middle school parents and if you have a bully issue. So both are amazing resources. Above my head, I do parenting online courses. I do coaching, but primarily I have this free app, which you'll see this up above my head now. It's a link. And in that free app, I give lots of free videos, a lot like what you're going to be hearing about today. So if you enjoy this room, I definitely recommend that you check out the app. This is kind of what I do. This is my passion. It's my what I just love. I just love helping parents because I was a school teacher for many, many years, over 20 years, and I just want to pass along my expertise about kids. And more recently, inside the app, I have videos all about. Let's see, what are the newest videos? How to use essential oils so that you can stop using some medicines in your medicine cabinet and use essential oils instead. There's a video in there about how to discipline with connection. That's brand new. That one's from me. That how to discipline and actually create a connection with your kid while you're doing that. Actually, one of my parenting tips that I can think about, I need to mention that one. I'm going to do that in the hour today. And right now, I'm going to be working on a video on. I'm working on a video on restrictive eating. So when you have a picky eater, and it's gone beyond picky eating to a point where they're really it's picky eating to the extreme, and it's called restrictive eating, and it's actually a disorder that I want to make parents aware about. So that's going to be a new video coming out next week. And lastly, the latest video was a guest speaker I had who talked about weekly parenting meetings with your partner and why that's important and why that makes you a more impactful parent. So as you can see, there's like hundreds of videos inside that app. I highly recommend that you check it out. There's so much in there, and it's a free download available on Apple and Android. So I'm happy that you're here, but that's just about that. Like I said, I'm waiting mainly for Dali and Rodrigo to arrive so we could get started. And they should be coming in shortly. It is only 10 o'clock right now, and this is when we start. So they're going to be coming in right now. And we're going to be giving you tips about what we feel works in our household as experienced parenting coaches. But we were right in your shoes. In fact, I still am. If you don't know, I have four kids. They range from age 9 to 19. So I have a 9-year-old, I have an 11-year-old, I have an 18-year-old, and I have a 19-year-old. My 18-year-old is actually going to be graduating from high school tomorrow. I'm really excited about that. And and then I have my college kid. He's a freshman in college coming back. I can't believe he's going to be 20. Oh my goodness. I can't believe it. This might be my last summer with all four kids in my house. I can't believe it. I don't know whether to be excited about that or so sad and cry, as I don't know if my two teenagers will come back and live with me next year. It's crazy. But I guess that's the point of parenting, letting them go off and experience the world on their own. I'm at that point. But anyway, I invite you guys also to come up on stage and talk about some of your parenting tips and things that have worked for you in the past. And I really hope that you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and invite you to share the room now that we're going to go ahead and get started. And when you share the room, it's that button down at the bottom. Share it out to the clubhouse hallway is mainly how I like to ask people to share. It just lets people know in the hallway that this is a great room and they could come and join us for the whole hour. We are just getting started right now if you're joining us. And you can always ping people in, but I always feel like the pinging doesn't do all as well as maybe some of the other things. So invite people to come into the room, and we're going to get started. I think I'm going to text these guys and be like, where are you? Come and join me. Where's my co-moderators? Let me see where they're at. Yes, they're perfect. All right. I just texted them. Let's see, they should be coming in shortly. I'm going to share my room, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I'll get started with some of the things that I want, and we'll wait for them to come in. I don't want to wait for them. I want to give you as much information in my hour as possible. So I'm telling people, come join us. From people in the hallway, come join us. Awesome. And if you haven't joined the Amigos Club, make sure that you do that by pushing the little casita on the top. That little casita is we're the biggest Latinx club on Clubhouse. And yeah, our parenting rooms go way beyond, because parenting is across, cultures. But I love hosting my rooms here because this is an amazing community. And they have a Discord. Discord is its own app, and that's where people in the Amigos Club kind of talk to each other when they're not in Clubhouse. But let's go ahead and get started while these guys are coming in. I know they're coming. They told me they were going to be here, but I don't know where they're at. I don't want to wait any longer. So let's get started. Come on up if you have a parenting tip. Well, I'm going to start off with one of my favorite parenting tips. Is there's a saying in the parenting world that says that you need to connect before you correct. And basically what that is that you build a connection with your child so that you can correct their behaviors. And without that connection, when you try to correct behaviors, it just doesn't work. You could try and you can try, but if you don't have that connection with your child before you're trying to tell them what not to do or what they should do, they just don't want to listen to you. I mean, that's just the bottom line. They just don't want to. So what connection does is it allows your child to trust you, and it makes them feel like you are somebody that should be heard and you have to say. And so I love that. Oh, there's Rodrigo. Hi, Rodrigo. How are you?
Hello, how are you doing, Christina?
Good, good. I was just go ahead and getting started as I was starting, and um yeah, I just we're just talking about some of the things that uh practices that we did once and now we're trying to do better, and parenting tips that actually really work. So we're going to fill this hour full of things that we've done that really work for us in our house, and we're going to invite people up on stage to also share. And I started off with, have you heard that saying in the parenting world of you have to connect before you correct?
I have, and I agree with it deeply.
Yeah, yeah. So I was explaining that how, a lot of parents skip over the connection part, or they think they have the connection, but it's really more about how your child feels, since they're the one who you want them to get to trust you and learn to get your advice and stuff. So I was just starting off with that one because I think that in the beginning, I didn't really realize that. I mean, that's not how my parents did stuff. I mean, I was kind of in a fear-based parenting scenario when I was growing up. There was not a lot of connection until I got into my older years, and that's not how parenting. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. So I feel like when we connect with our kids before we correct some of their behaviors or ask them to listen to us and trust us and take our advice, it's really important. So that's kind of what I started off with. But what about you?
Yeah, I like that. I think we spoke one time about reach, teach, and each. And I mean, sorry, what was it? Reach, teach, and preach. I don't know if you remember that one. We had a discussion with that with somebody who mentioned that process and making sure that before you start teaching or preaching, you really got to reach. And I think that's a good message.
I
Yeah,
love that. I love that. Can you get a little closer to your mic? I'm having a little bit hard time hearing you. It's not the background noise. That's not a big deal. It's more your voice.
I will try, but I am in the middle of something. I'll probably be able to come in about 20 minutes or so.
No, no problem. No problem. But I do love that teach and reach thing. It's definitely a parenting thing that is important. I was trying to get a hold of Dolly because I knew Dolly wanted to be here too, but I don't know where Dolly is, but that's all right. Um, and then another thing, let's see, I'm trying to think of what I do that is completely surprising that has worked way better than people realize is creating a routine for my kids. Kids are thrive off of routine. Oh my goodness. I know like we don't as adults need a routine quite as much, but kids really thrive off of it. And I'm always just so blown away by how much a routine really works. To not only to get them to do stuff, but like compliance even, to get less complaining, to get less pushback. Like when you can create a routine for your kids, suddenly they don't complain as much, and that is huge. And so I found that that was really a good one. I don't know how routine you put in your household, but that's been a game changer for my house. Welcome, Denai. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm driving, but I just wanted to jump in and check out the room and listen in.
Yeah, if you have any techniques that have worked for you, anything that you want to share that's going to help people be a better parent, please like share if you had anything that's good. I know you have an older child, so this is even it's nice when we have older kids because we could look back and help those who have a little bit younger ones. Do you have anything that you could share with us?
Bribery. So I pay for all of our streaming services, the Netflix, the Hulu, the HBO Max, Disney Plus. I use a lot of bribery and I make sure that I have 100% control over everybody's logins.
That works. And it's awesome because I bet you could use that as leverage for so much stuff.
Oh, yeah, like, picking up groceries. I'm kidding, but I'm not. I do use a lot of bribery.
No shame in that. I feel like that's awesome. If it works, it works. So that's awesome. I invite anybody else to come up and say anything else that you want to share that works for you and your household. We actually learn more when we're better together, when we could share ideas about what works for us in our homes. Um, so come up on stage, raise your hand, and join our conversation. Um, I I love I do use bribery a lot when they were kids, and then I like Rodrigo would put in the chat. It works for a while, and then when they don't need you anymore, it kind of falls by the wayside. But it can work for a while, and I think it's awesome. I try to think. The another thing that works for me in my house too is when I am more into myself and like more carrying myself well, it actually that trickles down to my kids. And I've noticed that that's made differences that I don't didn't really anticipate. And more, I discovered that after I got divorced, when I had to start focusing on myself and my own health. And when I had to focus on me and how taking care of myself, I guess it was the role modeling of it really because I saw that my kids started to they were just watching and they're like, "Oh, maybe I should eat a little better or sit and I was going through my getting my master's at the time and they wanted to sit and uh, study with me and do more work and just role modeling my own well-being. It really helped improve my teenagers' well-being, and I never had to say anything. They just looked and they followed, and
they kind of I just led by example. Didn't even have to nag them or anything. It just kind of came. And that shocked me. I did not expect that to happen at all. I was just trying to take care of me, as I was a hot, crazy mess after my divorce, and just try to pull my shit back together again. But it did work. And I didn't even have to like say to them anything. Just role modeling good wellness was really impactful to my kids and getting them to be a little bit better. And maybe even being vulnerable. I feel like being vulnerable also helped, um, when I was in that low spot, for them to see that they knew that I was in a low spot, and for me not to hide it all the time was probably pretty healthy, because it just gave me humanity, I guess, in their eyes, where they didn't feel like they didn't want to bother me. They saw that I had a lot on my plate already. And luckily, I have just nice kids that were able to see me and look at me being vulnerable and say, okay, I guess I'll try not to mess up right now because she's got a lot on her plate. But the being vulnerable in front of your kids is a big deal. I feel like that helps a lot. And parents, we hide our emotions way too much. We're always trying to be the strong one, and we're always trying to be like, I don't know, just strong. And we don't need to be, not all the time. We always want to be good for our kids, but when we're vulnerable, it really does open up a different side of us for them to see, that I think makes us more human. And especially if you have older kids, I think that helps a little bit. Um, Kind of depends on their personality too. I don't know if it would work for every kid, but luckily it did work for mine. Anybody else have any ideas?
So there is one thing that I find works a lot for me, and this one isn't like joking around. This is an actual serious thing for me. Uh, when, and I'm sure everybody here can relate on the stage. When you have teens, everything is so 10x, right? The emotions, the everything, the reactions. And so, there are many times where, as the parent, your job is not to agree with your kids when they are, making the wrong choices, or not meeting certain standards, whether it's, a moral code or whatever things that you taught them. And so I found that when my kids would ask me for advice about stuff and I wouldn't agree with them, right, to have with a teenager, no matter what they want is for you, you're disagreeing with them, and you're trying to point out to them, look, maybe you're wrong in this situation. That's a very tough conversation to have, right? And so I found that by emphasizing the fact that I am on their side, right? So, and if there was a conversation, like maybe my kid was mad at his coach, and he's like, I don't want to deal with him anymore. I want to, he's being a jerk, blah blah blah. You know, I'd have to disagree with him and explain to him maybe, his, or what he was thinking of doing, or his reaction. Like, really, really emphasize, listen, I am on your side. Of all the people on this planet that you're ever going to seek out advice from, right? Some people might give you the advice that you want, but I'm going to give you the advice that I know is right for you, as the one human on this planet that wants the absolute best for you, no matter what. And I'm always, always on your side. And so, that for me really, really has helped with the very, very tough conversations about making choices. And when I cannot agree with my kids, and I have to tell them, hey, you're doing something wrong here, or you're about to, or your frame of thinking is not correct. I don't know if you guys have ever used that strategy, or how that's worked for you in those types of conversations, but that I find really, really has worked for me, and just super, super emphasizing how much I'm like team you.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think we say that enough to our kids. I think that we assume that they know, And they don't, especially as they get older, because they want to rebel. They're approaching adolescence, so they want to create their own identity, and they have that something inside of them that says, I need to start being my own person, and not listening it quite as much, and to remind them over and over, not just that one time like you said, Denai, but continuing to do it, that I am on your side. I think they need to hear it, even if they roll in their eyes. I always say their eyes might be rolling, but their ears are open. Just say it anyway and keep doing that. Hi, Dolly. Nice to see you today.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Yeah, we're good. We're just talking about things that have worked for us in the past, or things that haven't worked, so that we can just get a whole bunch of parenting tips that might work for us. So we can elevate our parenting game and be better, more like it's a community of, we're better together. So anything that might have worked in your household that you feel like is something that other people should try, anything, like it could be something small to something more theoretical, it doesn't really matter. But and then not, did I was saying that we got to remind our kids that we're on their side, which I agree, we got to do that more often.
Yes, I definitely do that all the time, as much as I can, because, when you tell them, actually, yesterday, I told, after dinner, I told the girls, I said, hey, so who's going to wash dishes and who's going to wipe down the counters and table? And immediately, like, the mood went from smiles to to grins to frowns. And I said, hey, it's a team effort. Remember, we all help out. That's how we all stay happy and fed, and, like, just reminding them. But one of the things that, so they hate chores. They still hate chores in 14 and 15. And I've learned that if I have like a timeline for them, they do better. If I say, okay, just make sure you take a shower before bedtime, that does not work. They will wait until like the very last minute, like 1 minute before 9 bedtime, and they'll be like, oh, I have to go shower. And so, of course, then they're up way longer. And what I did is I set up an alarm, and they hated it. They were like, oh no, we're not babies. We don't need that. But I said, just try it. And they were very resistant about it. But the alarm went off, and they looked at the time, 6 o'clock. They were like, okay, time to shower. So they did it very begrudgingly. But then when it came time for bedtime, to unwind and all that, I could tell that they were more at ease, and they were not rushing. They didn't have that stress of, oh my gosh, I still gotta go shower, I'm gonna get in trouble or whatever. And one of them, a few days later, they said, Mom, I have to admit, I owe you an apology. I was not being very nice, but I really did like how I felt after you made us shower when the alarm went off. And, inside I was like, woohoo. But I was like, oh, okay. I just played it cool. Like, okay, well, thank you for telling me. So the alarms definitely work. And it doesn't always work 100%, but it has been better than just letting them select the time, because they'll procrastinate if they can.
Sorry, I'm trying to get a link for you guys because I love that suggestion. And one of the things that works really well, and if you have a younger child and you're down in the audience right now, the link I'm going to put up, you need it. It's their visual timers. And the visual timer is really awesome, especially if you have a kid. It looks really great with kids that are autistic. Works really great with kids that have ADHD. Any kind of visual learner, they work awesome for, and it counts down the time. But what's great about it is that it's visual, so they could see how much time they have left, and it's so impactful. Teachers all over the United States use this visual timers in their classroom, um, and it helps a lot with transitions. And so I'm going to lead the mic over to you guys for just a minute while I get a link for that, because I'll just get an Amazon one, and they're under $20. And if you have a younger child, you need it. And then it works great for older kids too. But when you got a younger one, that's when you start implementing a lot of these techniques, right? Because then you can continue them through their adolescence and they don't think much about it. Versus trying to introduce a visual timer to a teenager is sometimes you get some pushback, or sometimes they may like it. Just like you said, Dolly, they'll put pushback, but then they'll like it later on after they've tried it for a bit. But a little kid will be like, this is great, and they'll love it. So let me get that link for you guys.
So, one of the things I wish that exists, and please, if y'all are listening and you know of this, let me know. But those timers, like, I don't know if you've listened to The Rock, uh, Dwayne Johnson, there's an app where he'll wake you up in the morning saying like really funny stuff, and he kind of sings to you. I tried it. I didn't like it. It was kind of creepy, but I wish there were something like that for kids. Maybe one where you can set it to say like, "Hey, it's time for your shower," or time to do the homework or something like that. That would be cool. So if you know of an app or anything like that, I would love to have it, because sometimes when I set the timers, it just goes off and then they forget. They're like, "What is that for?" So it'd be nice if it would announce, what it's for. If you can, like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's one of those inventions I should create if it doesn't exist any right now. Any other tips? Rodrigo, what have you tried? Are you there, Rodrigo? I think he might be tied up. All right. Well, let me think of the other thing that I've tried for keeping things organized. Oh, yeah. So, my children, especially my younger one, she gets really overwhelmed cleaning her room. And, here in the United States, people love to give kids gifts like toys and everything. And I noticed years ago that she just had way too many. I mean, I had a whole spare bedroom packed with toys. And then she would take some into her room. So when I'd ask her to pick up her room, she would get so overwhelmed that she would cry and stuff. And I decided to empty out the room as much as possible. So we had this rule where every time she wanted a new toy, she had to get rid of two toys or whatever they were, two stuffed animals, two, dolls, cars, Legos, whatever. Um, and she had to choose like when we did the decluttering, she had to choose what to get rid of. And I gave her a number because at first I was like, okay, let's try to get as much out of the room as possible. And maybe we'll store it. And then whenever you have say like the need to come and play with this elephant stuffed animal, then you can just swap it out. So we kind of had like a library system. So I'd keep all the toys in what became the toy room or playroom. And I had a card where she would write like the date and then which stuffed animal she was borrowing that day, and then which one she was swapping it out for. And she actually really liked this. So, of course, she was a lot younger. If I tried that today, at 14, she probably wouldn't go for it. But that actually helped. And when we decluttered her room, I think she felt a little more at ease that it was up to her which like stuffed animals to keep, because there were like, I remember I gave her 10 that could stay in the room, and then everything else had to go. So she had that choice. And then, we moved everything, all the extras, to the spare bedroom. And then, when she was not aware, I would slowly get rid of toys here and there, and she never noticed to this day. Actually, she did years later. She asked for this one thing she called a fluffy ducky. She asked about it, and I pretended like I didn't know where it was, but I remember giving it away.
You didn't.
But I mean, she's still alive. She lived through it. She was heartbroken, but it worked.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want if you PTR up there, you're going to see that link for the visual timer. I really highly recommend those, you guys, especially if you have smaller children, but they're good for everybody. Those visual timers, they're super cheap and they are awesome. They really do work really great. You probably gave me an idea too, Dolly, and I'd like to invite anybody else on the stage who'd like to share too, but um, if you have a kid that has anxiety or depression, one thing that really works for helping them overcome some of that is volunteering and community service, and not something just where they're doing something at home, but where they're actually going out into the community and visually seeing and helping the people. So doing an active thing. I know that a lot of community service, especially during COVID, was, hey, I'll make blankets at home and then you donate them. That's great. But if you're trying to lift the spirits and change the mentality of your kids in general, service, especially during the summer months, can be really effective. And why it works for kids that are fighting with depression is when you start doing community service, you activate something in your brain about being selfless and helping others. And that kind of service, it helps with, I don't know what the philosophy behind it is, because I'm not a psychologist. But psychologists will agree and they'll tell you it's research based. Service helps with depression. So if that's something that you have in your household, and no matter at what age, it's something that you could do. And a lot of people don't talk about that as being one of the things to help with depression, but it really does. So even if you yourself are struggle with depression, doing service, physical service out in your community can really be helpful. It just triggers a different thing in your brain to kind of overcome some of that. And one thing that I've done for years, especially when they get into the tween stage, so between the ages of, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, is to start those habits of going out into the community in the summertime and volunteering some time, whether it's making meals or going to a soup kitchen or just about anything you could do. But if you're out there, just it teaches your kids something different. They get to see a different perspective. Um, it's just really, really cool. I don't know if anybody else on stage has done service with their kids and have felt that that has worked. But for me and my household, it's been a game changer also. Really, really impactful.
So I've done that. The girls really like it. But what I love about it is that they learn about empathy. Because I remember the first time we took them to an event, we were handing out sweaters, jackets, gloves, because winter was coming. And we went to a park, and the organization we were doing that with, just had a whole bunch of people come out, and the girls were in charge of organizing everything by like what they wore, like sweaters, jackets, shoes, socks, whatever. And when people came through, they were very like surprised about how excited these people were to come and grab used but nice wearable things. And they were also surprised that a lot of people were asking for personal hygiene items. And they were like, I can't believe that they don't have toothpaste or toothbrushes or shampoo. They were asking for soap. They were asking for tampons or pads. And they still talk about that today, because ever since they've always asked, can we go? Can we go? So we're here in Baltimore. They did the same thing, but for children. And they're so into, they get into the, like, oh, I want those Jordans, I want this and I want that. And they came home and they were like, oh my gosh, those kids, they've never ever owned a pair of like Vans or or Jordans or whatever. And they're like, they really just wanted just whatever shoes. And so it's nice to hear them talk that way. And then things will happen at school, like somebody's made fun of because their shoes are not brand name, and they'll actually stand up for them or just walk up to them and say, hey, whatever, don't listen to them. So it did create that empathy in them. And I think that allowed them to also notice how some people are discriminated for not having this or that. So that's really nice, and I hope that they continue to have that lens, to notice that they do have some privilege, and that they really need to, um, I think, like, appreciate it and respect that privilege as well, and then use it for good. How about you, Kristina Rodrigo? Any aha moments that your kids have had with volunteer work?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I make it a very important part of my upbringing for the boys. Whenever I'm trying to let them know why it's important to be empathetic, why it's important to help, or the type of feeling you get. One of the biggest things that we would always do was go to the food pantry. Now they had like specific times when you can go there. I loved going over there. My boys at the beginning they would hate it, before go. Oh, I gotta get up on a Saturday and this and that. But when we would go and we finish, they always had a feeling of, hey, I did something good. I actually contributed in a meaningful way, and I think it's really important because my boys, and I think a lot of our kids probably don't have that framework of appreciation sometimes because maybe they didn't have it like we did growing up. I know for my part, I did experience that insecurity, food insecurity, or financial insecurities, and there was a time, and we've discussed this before, that scarcity mindset, right? Where hey, I needed to eat everything I had because I didn't know maybe when was the next time we were going to be able to eat. My boys don't have that, and so it's important to have that kind of perspective to give them a little bit of understanding of what their privilege is. And I really appreciate Dali saying that because that's exactly what it is. It's privilege, and again, and people treat privilege as if it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It just means that you do have a benefit. You grew up in a environment where you didn't have food insecurity, or you were afforded a great education, or you have financial means. Whatever the case may be, privilege is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just how you work with that privilege, and how you understand that privilege that can be a good or a bad thing. So I think that's really a good point that you brought up, Dali, and why it is important to take your kids out there to do that. My dad didn't do that with me. My dad didn't do that with me. Um, Man, I'm always villainizing my dad, aren't I? I'm like, you'll probably be the worst guy in the world, but he really isn't. But he really did think that it was kind of a waste of time. My dad had, he's a bootstrapper, right? So, and he's done very well for himself. So he feels like, hey, if I did it, anybody can do it. And to an extent, he has a point. Hey, get out there and do what you got to do, right? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you have to demean folks. So my dad, he never took us out to go help. If anything, it was my mom. The one thing that we would do would go to the Raul Jimenez Thanksgiving dinner. At one point, it was the largest Thanksgiving dinner celebration held for folks in a city in the United States. So every year in Thanksgiving, they would give out food, Thanksgiving dinners for folks that didn't have a place to go, were food insecure, or maybe just wanted to, come by and hang out with a bunch of people. And I participated in that, and I had a good run. I had probably I would say about 8 years, and then it was sporadic. And then the last time I went was in 2016, and I actually took my boys with me, and they helped serve. It was fun. It was a great way to kind of continue that tradition, and they know, hey, you know what? I'm helping Dad out. You know what I'm saying? This is something that Dad's done. They remember that. I dressed up as a chicken one year, or a turkey. I'm sorry,
Awesome.
a turkey.
Oh, I want to see pictures.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. Y'all, it lives on the internet forever. But I was a turkey one year. They needed somebody to dress up, so there I am, dressed up as a turkey. And I'll never forget my oldest, Rodrigo. Gosh, he was what, 9, 10, something like that. And he asked me, he goes, why are you dressing up like a turkey? And I said, this is what they needed help. This is the help they needed. And he was really kind of awestruck by that. He goes, that's good, Dad. That's good, right? But I could see the gears in his head working, and him understanding that help for one person might be different from another person. And even a turkey walking around making jokes and providing some sense of humor for folks that maybe are food insecure or don't have family to go to, maybe that was the help that they needed. And I was providing that. So hopefully my boys, especially my oldest at the time, they understood that and they appreciated that.
I think the key there too is actually doing the showing, and they got to see it, because I'm sure that a lot of parents take that stance of, you don't know, you how good you have it, and you just tell them how good they have it. But that doesn't really work. You actually have to show them how good they have it so that they can be empathetic and realize and know that it's not just, you're not just talking about it. It's a reality that they have it good, or hopefully they have it good, you know? So that makes a difference.
And I want to add it in case, since summer is coming real soon. If you don't know how to get your child involved, especially right now during COVID, you can actually call your city hall and ask if they have any ways of volunteer work to get kids to volunteer either virtually or in person. And a lot of places are opening up and they're using, mask mandates according to that state. Um, the other place is the rec centers. The school district actually sometimes has a list of volunteer projects that they have going on throughout the summer. Community colleges, through the youth program coordinator, whoever that may be. And there was one more. I said the city hall, right? And of course, like churches, and it doesn't have to be a church that you belong to or a place of faith where, of worship that you belong to. It can be any. So just throwing that out there if you want to keep the kids engaged, because, they do get bored and sometimes they're like, oh, I'm so ready to go back to school. And then they have like a whole month left. So they can also find new friends and just get a different perspective of other different people. And that's always really good.
I got a question for you guys. Oh, go ahead, Rodrigo.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on something that Danai had said earlier that I really appreciated, and I was a little busy, but I wanted to bring it up because it's important, and I think folks don't realize sometimes that they're not doing it the right way, and that's saying that, hey, I got your back. I'm 100% team son, team daughter. It's really more about letting them know that you got their back and that they feel that you have their back, not just by you telling them that you have their back. My dad always had my back. My dad always pulled through. I was a little pollito. He was a big rooster. He took care of me. He made sure that nobody messed with me, right? I still didn't feel that he had my back though, in the terms of like, hey, I'm going through something. Hey, some shit's going down at school, or I don't know, I broke up with my girlfriend and blah blah blah, right? I didn't have that access. Now, if I needed something, or somebody was talking shit about me or whatever, yeah, my dad was like ready to just throw down, or hey, throw money at the problem. If all kinds of solutions he had, but they're all very financially based, and they were all very based on standing up and being maybe even physical or mentally, prepared for a challenge, as opposed to the emotional aspect. And I like what Denai was saying earlier, like just saying, hey, I'm 100% got your back. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm gonna, be supportive of every single idea you have. If you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you're gonna be misguided, I'm gonna help guide you. But at the end of the day, I said it. Damn. I have your back.
I'm so
I
glad
really.
that I just tuned back in.
Right on time.
You got to hear that.
I'm
It's
over
Timing
here giving
was
you
Wednesday.
flowers.
beautiful.
I'm giving
I'm
you
sending you
flowers,
some
and what do you
flowers.
chime in on?
You're
Wow,
dropping some
thanks.
gems, bro. Gems.
Oh, thanks, bro. Thanks, bro. And so yeah, so it's really important that your kids feel like you have their back, and not that you just tell them that you have your back. And unfortunately, we don't do a good job of that a lot of times. And in fact, what we end up doing is almost pretending or giving this illusion that we have our kids back. But as soon as they mess up, as soon as they do something dumb, as soon as they show some emotion, we might be the first ones to say, "Come on, toughen up," and like, "Hey, come on! Oh my God, that was so stupid," and blah blah blah. They don't necessarily need that every single time. Acknowledging that they make a mistake, holding them accountable, but not holding it against them, is really important and really sets the tone. And I say all that because when Denai said that, I know that my son, for example, is going through a breakup, right? And it's high school, right? And we all have the the hindsight, right? To say like, come on, man, it's high school, it's nothing. Oh, why is he worried about this? But to him, that's his world right now. That really is what's affecting him, what's bothering him. I told my dad about it 2 days ago. We were talking, my dad and I. We have businesses that we run together, and my son actually called my dad to ask him about, hey, you told me that maybe I could work for you, do this and that. So then my dad asked me, he goes, hey, Samuel didn't call me, he was supposed to call me. Da, da, da. I said, yeah, he had a rough day the other day, he broke up with his girlfriend. First thing he goes, that little girl was ugly anyways, which is kind of weird. I mean, she's in high school. But whatever, right? Just set that aside for a second, right? But then he goes, tell him to come talk to me, okay? Just, you know what he needs to do? He just needs to go find another girl. You know what I'm saying? He'll be all right. And I told my dad, I said, no, man, he really liked this girl, okay? He had like these hopes and dreams and all this shit, blah, blah, blah. And so what does my dad say? He goes, oh, like I remember you had that one girlfriend, remember? And, I mean, y'all didn't work out either.
Wow.
I love the
So I'm
impression
over
of
here
your
thinking
dad.
like,
I
yeah,
He go
no,
into a
this is
different
spot
voice and
on too,
everything.
by the way. It is spot on, okay? But, that's the type of support that he would give me. My dad, there was no room for emotional support. It's like, get the fuck on with your life. You leave that girl, and even a little bit more abrasive. Like, oh, just go find somebody else to mess with. And you a man, and blah 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 blah. And it's funny because I know that that's the environment I grew up in, and I know it affected me for a while because I did do that. I did do that in my late teens, early 20s, where, hey, if I got in a breakup, man, I was right back out there. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to prove myself. Nah, man, that girl ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm the shit. I'm gonna do what am I doing? But it was really just a constant hurt people, right? And so when my son is going through his crisis, if you will, his crisis right now, I let him know, hey, I got your back, man. Just let me know what you need, this and that. My son cried. We hugged it out. He didn't want to go to school one day. I told him, no problem, don't go to school. You get one for that. At the end of the first week, I told him, I go, hey, look, you got 1 week, man. After that, what I'm saying, let's get it together. Let's see what we can do to improve and do this and that. And so my son started to come into the gym again with me, trying to, move his mindset away. So two key things right there, and I'll end there. Is one, I haven't judged him based on what he's done with his relationship stuff. I just give him advice, and hopefully he knows. I told him, don't be a creeper, don't be weird. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you need two people to be
That's
to
good
to
advice,
want to be in
though.
her. Yeah, I think it is. I don't want him to be stalking her. I straight up told him. I said, give her the space, man. I mean, it takes two people to be in a relationship, and if one person doesn't want to be in it, then that's it. There is no relationship. And I know it sucks. It hurts. I've been there, and I think my transparency and my openness with my relationships allows him to be transparent and open with me as well, because he knows what I've been. Hello?
we can hear you. It kind of cut
Yep.
off.
Oh no, I accidentally ended the Bluetooth. But anyways, he knows what I've been through. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I know there's a way that folks kind of perceive that guys should do or whatnot. I'm not gonna tell my son he's either right or wrong, but I am gonna tell him, like, hey, look, you may want to think about it like this. You may want to think about it like that, because this is gonna set up his building blocks for the relationships he has for the rest of his life. And I definitely want him to do a little bit better than I did growing up, because I know I was a shitty boyfriend, and quite frankly, I was a shitty husband and a terrible partner for probably the first half of my life. And a lot of it was because I just wasn't taught the right way. I had a pretty rough example from my mom and my dad, and I learned along the way, and I don't want my son to do that. I don't want him to learn along the way and stumble, and hopefully by kind of letting him know that I have his back, and also allowing him to be emotionally vulnerable. That he knows, hey, you know what, I got this, but I know with Dad that we got this.
I like it. I think it's awesome. Great tips, great advice.
And kudos to you, Rodrigo, for admitting, seeing that you weren't all that great before, because we all grow, right? Because I know I have those memories where I was like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that or said that to my kids, but we're all growing and evolving, and I think that's what's important, and things kids need to also see that vulnerability in us. And that's why, like, one of the things that has helped me a lot is always apologizing for the things that I do wrong, or when I say something, I'm like, man, that I really shouldn't have said that. I was so upset. And I'm also teaching them as well to apologize for anything that they've said wrong or done wrong. And that's something that to this day, my all of my siblings, all six of us, when we have that conversation with my mom, is like, Mom, you still don't apologize. And then I can tell that some of my siblings are still super hurt because she didn't apologize back then and she still won't do it today. It's just like, that's just how she's gonna be. She's just so stuck on, well, it happened, I don't need to do that anymore. So I'm trying to do different. I'm trying to make sure that my kids do know that when I make a mistake, I'm going to admit to it, and I'm going to also apologize and try not to repeat it again.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh my goodness. Apology is so powerful. And that's worked really well for me in my household too, Dolly, to finally just say, you know what, I messed up. I'm sorry. Or I should have done this, or maybe I should have handled that better, or man, I'm sorry I blew up at you. That one's that one was been powerful sometimes before I knew how to control my emotions. And again, there's been something, I don't know if it's cultural or if it's just human nature, why we don't want to apologize, especially to our kids. I don't know why that is, but if you can get over that and you can apologize, another game changing technique in your parenting, because it just it'll open things up for you in your relationship. That's what brings that connection.
Absolutely, Christina. Absolutely, 100%. And the reason that folks don't know how to apologize is because they saw their parents not apologize and they grew up not apologizing. It took a lot of work for me, mental health therapy, to really get to a place where I just acknowledge who I am, what I've done, and move forward with that. And one thing that my boys, I'm super proud of this. I definitely am proud of that. Is that they know, hey, if I fucked up, I fucked up. I need to apologize and I need to make do right. They don't walk around with such pride that they can't apologize or they're unwilling to. I know my oldest son still has a little bit of a tough time, but he's coming around with that. And a lot of times, though, it's because our parents, and in my son's case, his parents, he saw some of that bad behavior. He saw some of that unwilling to move on or not apologize, and so you internalize that. And what happens is you end up being your parents, and you end up not apologizing either. So I think that's a great step in really kind of humanizing parents, because I know for me, I romanticized my parents, to be honest. I thought they had a fantastic relationship. I knew there were some messed up things, right? But I still felt like there was like this unity there, that despite their flaws and this and that, they loved each other and this and that. And yeah, my dad, he's rough and he does this and that, but man, he's a fucking badass, And my mom, oh my god, man, I was so wrong on all of that. I really, I really, my parents were just as flawed as anybody else, and the fact that I idolize them and that I romanticize them, it really does dehumanize them, because then I feel like, hey, you know what? I got to live up to that standard. And I did that. I did that for a while. And what you end up doing is just chasing something that's really not there. And I think when we take the time to humanize ourselves as parents to our kids and let them know that it's more important to be real, it's more important to show our emotions, be vulnerable, be authentic, if you will. It's more important to do that to hold up this facade of like, hey, I'm doing right, everything I do is right, or do as I say and not what I do because that's not what I intend, and all this other stuff. It really removes that whole veneer, the facade really that hey, parents are always right. No, we fuck up too. You know what I'm saying? I'm a parent. I've messed up, but I'm honest about those mess ups. I acknowledge them. I apologize them, and hopefully by modeling the behavior that I want my kids to do, hopefully they'll grow up to be better adults and better parents themselves.
There's that saying, I don't know if you guys have heard it, but the best thing that a dad could do for his kids is love their mom. And I think that could go both ways. Obviously, it should go both ways. I just think that having respect for the other parent, it could be really it's so powerful. It sets the precedent for, like you said, looking up at your parents and knowing what a relationship looks like. And even if you're in a divorce, and this makes it harder, like 100 times harder when you're in a divorce to love that other parent and respect that other parent, especially when there's been some bad things in the past. But even in divorce, I still hold by that. In fact, yesterday, my ex-husband, we have a rocky relationship like everybody else because he's my ex-husband. and then, but for the most part, we get along. We really do. We put our kids first, and we just that's our base of everything of our relationship now. From moving forward after the divorce, we put our kids first. We do what's best for them. And although I know we have a good relationship, me and him, my kids don't see it all the time. And they think that their dad doesn't like me that much or whatever. And I'm always like, no, actually he likes me, you guys. I mean, we're friends. He texts me when you guys aren't all the time. You just don't know because you're not seeing my phone. He still calls me and when he has problems to come to me and as a friend and to be supportive to him. And yesterday, Cortez is in town. For those of you who don't know, Cortez is my oldest son, and he's here. And the other kids are at school, but my ex-husband got a brand new little. It's not a car, but it's like a little play car. And he comes over and in the middle of the day and says, "Are you home? I want to show you." And I said, "Sure, come on over." So he comes over and he is there to see me, but Cortez is around. And he's like, I want to take you for a ride. So Cortez got to see that his dad came over to see me, to share something special, to take me for a ride in his new car, to be the first one in the family to take for the ride. He didn't take my kids for the ride first. He took me on that ride first. And I think that was pretty impactful for Cortez. He's like, wow, dad's really getting along with you right now. And I'm like, yeah, he actually always is, but you guys just don't see it. And I wish he would show that to the kids more because I think that it's such a just important thing, even as divorced parents, just to see that you guys can still co-parent together. You guys can still live. It's hopefully we're modeling those good relationships, but I just wanted to add that.
Uh, Go ahead.
No, I mean it's so important. Our kids are going to see kind of the basis of their future relationships, and so that's a great way of modeling that behavior, Christina. I completely agree, and I know what that means because I know my son. He sees the interactions, and I'm talking about my youngest son. He sees the interactions between his mom and I, and he literally is bewildered because he knows a lot of his friends. They have stepmoms, stepdads, and exes and all that stuff, and we get along very fine. We joke. We even make jokes, on him. We crack on him when he tries to crack on us, and it's really a great co-parenting relationship. And because of that respect, like you said, Christina, the basis is for our son. And we figured, hey, if we get along, it's going to be just that much easier. And it has. It has been super easy. And my son sees that, and he is confounded by it, but at the same time, really appreciates that. And the fact that he knows, hey, you know what? Mom respects my dad. Dad respects my mom. Even though they went through all this mess, even though dad treated her like shit when they were together and they broke up, blah, 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 they still have a respect for each other. hopefully my son takes that and understands that, hey, at the end of at the end of a relationship, it doesn't mean that we have to, be enemies. That we have to be against each other. We have to hold on to some emotional baggage that we have, especially if that relationship involves a child. And so hopefully he gets that. He gets that picture, and I think he has. And my other son with his mom, it's a completely different story. Completely different story, and that's because that it wasn't there. The thought of, hey, our son comes first wasn't there all the time. I will say for myself, I evolved, and I did definitely make it a priority to make sure that Rodrigo always came first. And unfortunately for his mom, she has it, and now little Rodrigo, and his mom don't talk. They don't speak, and it was really tragic when she texted me out of the blue, and I also rejected the text. I don't have anything. I really don't have anything to speak with the lady. We have our son, and for my son's sake, I want her and him to have a great relationship. I want her to thrive for my son's sake. But as far as like her texting me or calling me or anything like that, I don't know. I'm protecting my peace at that point. But it was tragic that after, I would say, about 2.5 years of not communicating at all, her and I, that she did reach out to me and asked me about Rodrigo. And I flat out didn't. I gave her a response, and I just asked her, don't ever text me again. But it was tragic to me to hear that, to see that she was reduced to that because she didn't put Rodrigo first, and she still has it. She still wants to control him and wants to do this and do that. And again, I'm not trying to badmouth folks, but what I'm trying to show is that when you don't put your kids first in those situations, it will come back to haunt you. And now she's basically paying the price for some of the things that she's done in the past. And my son, as much as I tell him, hey, Papa, don't be like that with your mom, man. Look, that's the way she loves you. It doesn't mean that she, is right, but she just doesn't know how to love, man. You got to cut her some slack and this and that. And my son will tell me, no, fuck that. Why is she making my life hard and blah 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 blah. And all I can do is sit back and watch. And I'm like, hey, my son is an individual. He's allowed to determine what's his piece, and he's allowed to determine how what boundaries he needs to set. And so it's just more of a cautionary piece of advice, if I will, for folks that when you do try to, when you do things that are outside of the scope of, I'm doing this for the sake of my son, or I'm doing this out of love and compassion for my son. When you do things outside of that, oh man, it could lead to some really bad things where your son has this pain, your kid has a pain that they can't, fix, and to a point where maybe they'll stop talking to you. Because earlier, Denai was talking about bribery, right? And like how she uses like, financial incentives to like kind of coerce the kids to do stuff, right? I remember when my dad, and I'll end right here. I remember my dad, he's always done that to me. Oh, remember I did this for you. I remember I did this for you. And it was all financial. But once I started making my own money, I kind of stopped talking to him for a bit. And then he got all painful, right? And he didn't realize that, hey, the only reason I was talking to you was because I needed you. But I wasn't really talking to you because I wanted to. There's a big difference in that.
Those words are very powerful, Rodrigo. Really great gems there, and just so true. And that's, I guess, the bigger goal is we want to instill some of these really big things into our kids, and that's really what parenting's about. It's not really that we do so much surface level stuff in our parenting so many times, but to teach them these bigger lessons of connection, and so we don't need to use all those surface level stuff. It's great. I'm kind of speechless, actually. Dolly?
Oh, that was a lot of truth there that you're saying, Rodrigo, because I was that kid that had to see the, like what you said, I can't remember how you put it, but yeah, you grow up and you realize a lot of things as a kid, and you realize which parent or when somebody is not placing your needs as a child, as their child, first. And even if your kids might not see it now, say like maybe you're going through a rough patch, I mean, you just keep loving on them and doing what's right for them, because eventually they're going to look back and they'll be like, oh my gosh, it was there all along. And you can go to bed feeling good that, hey, your kid might be mad at you because maybe they're not dealing with something right going on right now very well, but at the end of the day they're going to be able to look back and see that you've always put them first. And I tell my kids that, especially when we get into arguments, I'm like, look, I'm going to love you even if I'm really ticked off at you right now, because that's what I do, and I'm not gonna give up on you. That's another thing I always say. I'm not gonna give up on you. Like, I know this is hard right now, but I'm not giving up on you. It doesn't matter what you do wrong. I'm gonna be here for you. And I'm pretty sure that my kids don't believe me at that time, because they're like, "How could you?" Actually, one of them did ask me. He's like, "How could you do this?" After a big blowout that we had, I went back into her room and I was saying good night. And I said, I really, really love you. And I gave her a kiss on the forehead. I thought she was probably going to punch me away or something, but not that she's ever hit me. But then she looks at me, she's like, Mom, how do you do it? How can you still come here and just kiss me goodnight and say that I love you? I was like, because I do love you. And that's what love does. It helps you move through the bullshit and just see people for who they are and kids for who they are, because you're learning. Right now you're 15 and so many days. Tomorrow you're going to be 15 and an additional day. So you're a day older, and you've never been here before. You've never been this exact age. You've never been through this before, this exact situation, and neither have I. So you and I are both figuring this out together, and we're both going to come out, and we're gonna be good. So don't hold on to the, oh my gosh, I messed up, my mom's not gonna love me, or you're not gonna see me the same. That's not what unconditional love is. Unconditional love is truly unconditional. Like, you will love that person no matter what their mistakes are. So I keep reminding them that, because as teens they are very insecure, and I find it that reminding them, and even when they sometimes don't want to hug, I'm like, come on, just give me a little hug. Or sometimes I'll just catch them when they're not looking, and I'll just grab them from behind and hug them. But that's the parent's job, and I wish my mom would have done that in some circumstances with me. So that's why I try to do those lovey-dovey thingies, even if they think they're corny or like, oh, not right now, mom, because later I they'll come to me and they're like, that was so dumb, I was so mad, but thank you. And that's all that matters.
If you're listening to this and you're an outburst parent, like you scream a lot at your kids, or you're not, you kind of aspire more to be what we were just talking about, you know, putting the kids first. But give yourself some grace. We are emotional beings. You are an emotional being too, and it's hard uh, to see things when you're in the middle of it. It's hard to identify that it could be pride getting in your way for making maybe a better choice about how to handle something, or you could be resentful against an ex-husband or ex-wife because of something that happened, and so now you're talking badly in front of the kids about them, or you don't want that good relationship with them. It happens to all of us, and I just want to make sure that you give yourself grace, that this is, we're here to learn from each other, and it's hopefully we're just giving you some inspiration, something to inspire to, but don't get too down on yourself. It happens. And when you're in the middle of it, it's just, man, all the feels and all the feelings, it's really hard to turn it around and make some of those choices, putting the kids first, when you have all this anger inside, and just and you just feel like crap, and it's hard to make those choices, and it's especially hard in the beginning when you're not used to it. And after time, I will say that if you continue to practice it, it will get easier, it will get better. But give yourself some grace. Hopefully we gave you a ton of hour of inspiration of how you can tweak some of your parenting how to make things better, how to create a better connection with your kids, how to role model some of the good behavior that you want to see in them, because that role modeling is so super powerful. More than telling your kids or teaching them anything is living it yourself, walking the walk, talking the talk of how you want them to act. You want them to be kind to others and do service, then be alongside right next to them doing the service, being kind to others. You want them to have a good relationship with you and be kind to you and your husband or your ex-husband, then you have to be kind to each other too. So walk that walk. It's hard, but you can do it. You absolutely can. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour and we've actually gone over a little bit. I want to give my co-mods a last opportunity to say anything if they want to say anything to say goodbye or last piece of advice, and then we'll close out the room.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, I just want to thank everybody for being here, and remember that um, if you are struggling with something, I'm pretty sure that you have somebody that is very rational and understanding that you can go to, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, especially when you know that that person is reliable. That's something that we all have had a hard time with because we know that parents get judged, but if you have that one person, please take advantage. And if anything, Cristina Rodrigo and I are right here for you, and everything will be kept confidential. So reach out, and we know that you're doing your best. That's all.
I think if you listen to everybody here that's on stage, for the folks that are either catching it on a replay or on the audience, um, we work in the parenting, right? But obviously, it took a while for us to get there. It's a journey, and parenting is hard sometimes, and sometimes it sucks on a personal level because there are times we want to be petty. We want to like, oh my God, my fucking ex, did this to me, and I want to do this back. But at the core of what we're doing is raising kids the right way. That means that we sometimes have to take an L personally to our ego, to our pride, to our own self, and just say, hey, I, I'm putting my kids first and foremost. That's really what parents is about. And sometimes we lose that focus. And I think everybody here on stage has shared that at one point or another. It's not easy. And so what I would say to folks that are listening or whatnot is like, hey, do the best that you can, do what you can do with what you have, but be willing to learn, be willing to be flexible, adaptable, and acknowledge that your kids are their own human beings with their own feelings, and that they're not they're not going down the same trajectory that you are, that their experience, their lived experience, is far different than yours, and that when we try to impose what we went through to them, it can derail. And so it's important to allow them to own their experience, to own their reality, and acknowledge it. And the number one thing is say, hey, I got your back. And don't just say it, but mean it. That's all I got to say.
Yes, and all three of us, we're here to help you. We're here every week, noon Eastern time on the Amigos Club. And next week, we're going to be talking about how to deal with an in-law that's just driving you crazy. So if you have some in-law problems, or maybe even your own parents, come join us next week and join our conversation. We always invite you up on stage to also ask questions, and give us ideas. If you have an idea for a room, please message me in the back channel. I'd appreciate any ideas that you have. I'll be putting up some new rooms shortly. And I think that's what we have for today. Thank you guys so much for being here. Contact all of us. If you need anything, tap on our heads, follow Rodrigo, Dali, and I. Check out the app above my head and join us again next week. Thank you everyone for being here.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.